Hello folks, welcome. This is my regular Thursday stream where I check out games sent in for design feedback from the wider community. So anyone can send in games for this stream. If you want to, you're watching for the first time, indiegameclinic.com. You see here it says if you've got an unfinished game and you'd like to see it on the weekly Indies Under the Knife stream, please submit it here. I've been having some intermittent internet connection issues over the last week. Hopefully it'll be okay today, but just to let you know, if the stream cuts out, I will be back on another stream. We've got 3 games to get through today. I'm just going to drop a quick stream alert ping in our Discord so that anyone who is free can pop in. And yeah, thank you all for joining today. Oh, Streamception. We're looking at 3 games that are color matching games. And this is an interesting design space to me because it is something we associate so heavily with casual games. And casual games is a different market from indie games. You know, casual games are usually something you play on a mobile, usually something that is intended to be a free-to-play game that gets harder at some point and then you have to give them some money. My last full-time job was at King, and if you're unfamiliar with King, they make Candy Crush. They make I was working in the events team on Candy Crush Soda Saga up until January this year. I'd been working there for like a year doing cover for someone, and so that was very eye-opening. But yeah, this type of game is something we heavily associate with that market. Now, you can take a game type that is very casual and make an indie game out of it, but it usually needs extra stuff. So, you know, a great example of this would be, you know, Peggle, this kind of pachinko type game where you knock out all of these blocks and score points. This is a PopCap game that kind of predates free-to-play, really. These early PopCap games from the early 2000s were casual games, but they were ones that you paid a couple of dollars for and then downloaded on your PC. But Peggle, very casual game format, very high randomness, candy colors, very welcoming. Nothing here to say, oh, this is for hardcore gamers, grandma, you can't play this, you know. I'm not using this as an example of a color matching game because it's not, but as a casual game. Now, Peggle becomes Peglin. Don't know who's played Peglin? Same core mechanics, but it's got all this stuff that makes it feel a bit more like an indie game. It's a bit more crunchy. It's got this kind of fantasy combat wrapper to it and things to upgrade and all of that kind of stuff. So I'm always interested when people submit a game that is a game that I would normally associate with a casual free-to-play game format. And because then we can see, well, is this really an indie game? Because there is there are 2 meanings of indie games, right? And the one that gamers use is kind of subcultural. It's to do with how the game feels and like what features does it have and all of that kind of stuff. And a sort of hyper casual game or a free to play game usually doesn't really fit into that definition. Of what a gamer thinks of when they think of indie games. And that's generally the term that I use as well. So the channel being called Indie Game Clinic means it's a channel about indie games in that sense. That's why it's got a little bit of graffiti, because that's how indie gamers see indie games. They see them as this edgy, unique, you know, different from the norm in some way. Whereas a lot of developers, you think, well, I'm making a game on my own. I don't have any outside funding. I'm an independent game developer. Therefore, I'm an indie dev and everything I make is an indie game. And that may be true on some level, but I think in terms of like the marketplace and what players, self-included, think of when they think of as an indie game, something like Peggle or a Match 3 doesn't become an indie game until it has these other qualities to it. So the recent one we had with color matching games, which we're going to look at in a minute, was Spirit Swap, right? This is a color matching game, but it has all this other kind of wrapper around it that you wouldn't get in a free-to-play mobile game. It has a slightly more unusual out there art style. It has like a character-driven story element and stuff that you wouldn't get in a mobile casual game. So it has this other layer to it. Whatever that layer is, you know, in Peglin, the added layer to the very casual game style that we get is this kind of crunchy, strategic and tactical fantasy combat RPG type thing. And then in Spirit Swap, it is like, you know, visual novel type stuff, I think. Has anyone in the chat played Spirit Swap yet? Look, it's got like visual novel type stuff. And like just lots of colourful characters, which, you know, a casual mobile game would have as well, but they would just pop up as part of the menu. They wouldn't have anything to say. They'd just be like, hey, did you know you can buy some diamonds? If you buy 100 diamonds, you get 1 diamond for free. They don't really do anything. So I find this design space really interesting because I'm always interested to see how developers approach it and if they're aware of this. So what we're going to do, we're going to look at Gemmiferous, we're going to look at Huedini, and then we're going to look at the smallest game last, which is One Pot Planet. This is like a smaller game that's on itch. First place in the Pirate Software Game Jam, which is cool. But I think if we do it in this order, then we can take these kind of games that are a bit further along, seem to be further along in development because they're on Steam, and we can see what they've done and then see if we can apply any of it to One Pot Planet. So I was just thinking about the order of doing stuff here. So let's jump straight into Gemmiferous first, I think. See if we can get these to run. I quite like matching games as well. It's kind of coming back to something I was talking about yesterday. It's like there are games in pretty much every genre that I like. It's just to do with how they do their thing. But yeah. Thank you for downloading the demo. Appreciate any feedback or insights you have to offer. Yada yada yada. Wishlist the game if you like it. Okay. We should do, when we've got one of these streams and there's a wish list, we should do a big dramatic hover over the button moment. Okay. I like the music. It's kind of giving a bit of a Loop Hero vibe. We've got lots of different size pixels that I know some people will get angry about. I'm getting more forgiving on it nowadays just because I've been increasingly doing mixels in my own games and just realizing how much of a pain it is to actually do things the quote-unquote right way. Okay, so I can click on the castle and I can't click on anything else. We've got entering the dungeon and we've got village management. Are we doing Puzzle Quest meets Darkest Dungeon? Is that what we're doing? Thanks, Maui. Tutorial level. Right, we got some characters. And then the monk is kind of framed as the tutorial level, which is kind of fun. Swap tiles. Okay. This kind of is reminding me a little about of Scurvy Scallywags, which was a pirate-themed one from years ago, where you were like fighting on the grid. So they all kind of do what you would think. The mace stuns. The axe says axe attack tile, but it doesn't tell us what's different about the axe and the sword. Okay, they all do stuff. Intriguing. And the boxes give us stuff for our village. Oh, it's kind of we're doing real-time stuff, I guess. So I think if I just leave it, they just go, they attack back and forth. So kind of speed swapping. Yeah. Stressful. I tend to think, oh, we can't do blocks of 4. That's a bit disappointing. That looks like a tasty block of 4. It's quite unintuitive to not be able to do blocks of 4. Use key to spin the chest. See, I think my stance on pixel art at the moment is I don't mind if you vary the sizes, but I think these are so big that it becomes unflattering. And I know there are games that have got away with that recently, but yeah, just make them much smaller. They'll be more appealing. I'm very close to the screen as well, though, so this kind of reads worse to me. Use key to spin chest. Don't mind if I do. Okay, so the spin just gives you these different payouts. Random event. It's random event time. You entered a room and see book on the pedestal. See, this all feels right to me. You know, this pixel art font is a different size from this, but it's all kind of in the same wheelhouse, so it's not as bad, and the text is reasonably legible. Open the book on random page and read it. You quickly realise that it was not a good idea. You leave the room quite shaken but unharmed. Okay. That's the type of thing where those random events that you get in stuff like Slay the Spire and stuff, if you're going to put them in your demo, you need to make sure that it's representative of the whole game, and that was like a choice of 2 things with a piece of text, which didn't feel super inspiring in terms of, again, thinking about what a demo does. You're kind of selling people the game, you're telling people this is what the game's going to be like. That feels a little bit undercooked, and I know it's not representative of the final quality, but I will always be a little bit more skeptical of that stuff once it's on Steam and once it's asking for wish lists and everything, because it feels like you've locked in more of the final design decisions at that point. Okay. I quite like the fact that we can deliberately try and get particular things, or we can just sort of ignore it and just go for wherever the matches are. I find it really unintuitive that we can't do 2x2 blocks. Yeah, I like the chest from a mechanical perspective. That's a nice little thing to get at the end of a round, but it doesn't look particularly exciting. Right, I can get some HP for gold. This feels like a nice decision point. We don't have too many different options, but we have kind of 3 categories of things. I can get healing with my money. What's that out of? That's 33... We don't know what the max is, so 10 is going to take us up there somewhere. Get some healing. Tiles we can add to the board. That's cool. So we're doing kind of bag builder stuff with the tiles, which is neat. That wasn't even telegraphed, but it feels cool. So the problem is, what do these match with? Do they just trigger at any time, or do they match with another category of thing? I'm going to get a crossbow because I'm a rogue and I want to at least try and play the theme. Okay, we're leaving now. We don't know what the gems do yet. I think they're just the payout for the whole run when you get to the end of the run. and I haven't seen what they're for yet. I know there's going to be some village management that we use these resources for. So it's kind of like we're doing we're doing a dungeon crawl like in Darkest Dungeon, but instead of the antiques, you're collecting the resources to go and build the village. That does feel a little bit goofy from an economy, just like the thematics of the economy, because it's like, why would I go into a dungeon to get building materials? It kind of feels a bit, you know, in Darkest Dungeon they make it like heirlooms and stuff, and that's how you unlock things, and it's a bit more abstract, but it kind of makes more sense because it's like, why would I be fighting in the dungeon rather than... But I guess maybe if it's just a really dangerous forest, you have to fight monsters even if you just want to chop some trees, so, you know. Oh, treasure level. We're getting the music is great. The music kind of immediately tells me this is speed swapping and I need to do it as fast as possible, which is good. Okay. Didn't do very well there. I love that we have a kind of speedy treasure room. That's good. You've arrived in the room where you feel like you could rest. You see a campfire and stairs that probably lead directly up to the manor. You have to decide whether you want to rest, take half of the loot to the manor and come back. Okay. I would simplify that text as well. Think of how much text is on the resting screens in Slay the Spire. It's that way for a reason, because it's not an exciting thing to read, it's just a choice to make, you know? And then the image is there to sort of frame the theme and tell you this is what's happening in the story, but there's not like extra text to say this is what's happening in the story, because you can infer it from the image. Generally, I like the level of detail that is paid to the kind of VFX and the feel of this core. It feels like there's lots of little ropey things in this game that aren't super impressive. But the thing I do like about it, and I'm talking about things like the pixel art, the chest at the end of the level, lots of little things that don't look massively great in terms of quality. But what I do like is that it seems to have a higher proportion of time spent on this part, which is the thing I'm actually interacting with, you know? And if there's one thing that really bugs me in games, it's when the effort has been spent on the thing that you're not interacting with. And that makes me think that when that happens, it makes me think the developer doesn't really understand that they're making a game. You know, I talked about this with very recently with like a card-based game, and it's like, you need to make all of the UX and stuff of the cards the interesting part first, because that's the main thing you're interacting with, and then you can come back and iterate on all the background and the characters and all of the stuff in the sort of diegesis of the game world later on. The thing I like about this project so far is, although this is a little bit sketchy and I think the character sprites are too big and should be smaller, there's loads of little things that don't look great and don't look polished. There has been a lot of time put into the actual interactions and making those feel good, and that's where the time should be spent initially until you kind of come back to it, and then, you know, maybe you do a pass on making everything look a bit nicer. But there's just loads of little things like this. Why does this text box go all the way to here where the, you know, lots of little graphic design stuff. Okay. Pray for their soul. And I like the idea of like a run in a game being used to, like, you know, play as one character, you get some stuff, and then you're on to playing as someone else. We're going to repair the manor. Repair the tavern. Don't know what that did because it's gone, there's no information on it. I clicked on it before I'd read the text down here. Now the text is gone and now I don't know anything about it, but maybe if I go back here... Is that the tavern? We can play cards in the tavern. Right, and this will be why all of the kind of graphical elements of the game, well, lots of the graphical elements of the game are really ropey. It's because we've got mini games, which is cool, but it does divide your attention between parts of the game. Right, I'm going into the tavern. I'm gonna bet my emeralds. Stand on a 19, obviously. Ha. That's me done. I'm leaving now. Bye. That was productive. Go to the tavern, play 1 round of blackjack, get some sapphires, and go back into the dungeon. I'm quite greedy. I'm not... I think most people would retire when they own 19 sapphires. I think they think 19 sapphires, that's my lot in life. That's okay. I mean, Maui in the chat said, just fight Ents, then the issue is solved of harvesting wood from a dungeon. That's not. That's actually quite a good idea for this. You could have one of these bosses as an Ent, and you just get like a crazy amount of wood when you finish them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, just working out the. Let's start on the harder one. Listen, Ghost. I know you really want to spook me out, but I came here to kick ass and swap tiles. And I'm all out of ass. I am so focused on the board that I can't see their health, and I think this is maybe too peripheral. I would put the health bars above their heads so that they're more in line with your eye when you're playing the game. Because having it down here suggests it's not important, and you do need to occasionally look at it, I would think. Put the health bars above the characters. Make the characters like half the size, so they're taking up this space. Their feet are here, head's here. Put the health bar above their head. There. Then it is less distance for the eye to travel from the game to the health bars. Because my understanding is, there are situations where I want to focus more on attacking them or more on defending myself. So I do need to read the health bars. Yeah, Rob Bobbin, that's a good idea. You could have the health bars like here and here. Like this is my health bar going up there vertically. And this is their health bar. That's a good way of doing it. The thing that's good about that idea is it solves the issue of like enemies with different heights. Of like, oh, we've got a tall enemy, now we need to move the health bar up here. That's not great. But yeah, if they're just up the side, they can be kind of like, almost like big tall Diablo potions. Diablo, sorry. Every time I mention Diablo, someone laughs at me for saying Diablo. Which, I don't know, if you've seen The Boys, you will know the butcher says diabolical. He doesn't say diabolical. And that's where that word comes from. Was actually invented by that comic book and TV show. Didn't exist before then. Take the key away when there's no more spins left as well. Oh, I always miss the start of this level. The first time I was just like sat there for a moment and go, what's going on? There's pink stuff. Why is stuff different colours? And then I realised I needed to do that. I like the way that the node map is implemented, because it doesn't mean we have to make a decision each time. We only have to make a decision sometimes. I think that's a good choice for one of those Slay the Spire type node maps, because it stops you getting exhausted with having to think it through every single time. You can just, okay, like, sometimes you're just going in that direction and you click to start the next one, and other times you do have to make a choice. Wonderful. I quite like treasures. You encountered a room and entered a room and see treasure chest on the floor. Open the chest or leave the chest alone. I'm lacking context for this choice, right? So even if I make the intuitive, logical leap that the chest might be trapped and hurt me, I can't see my health. And that is the thing I would need to know currently to know whether it's a good idea to open the chest that may be trapped or not. I can't see my health. I don't have a problem with the Slay the Spire type map. I think it's a good way of giving a player a decision which isn't super clear, right? Let's see. We've got another treasure room. We've got a run with 2 treasure rooms. That's cool. I don't know how balanced that is, but I don't care because it means I get treasure. So do I like these maps in general? Yes, generally speaking, because I think they give a very clear sense of what the top level decision you're making, right? Am I doing a difficult thing or a hard thing? I can look at my health in this context. I can say I've got 38 health. That's most of my health. So I will do the hard one. And because I knew, generally speaking, I want to do the hard one because I'll get better stuff. But I don't want to do the hard one if my health is low. And that's... I don't think you want the decision to be any more complicated than that in a lot of cases. Because the thing is, the player is making it over and over again. Got so many swords. So are the black shields only because we're a rogue? I think the shield... It was called a rogue shield in the little helper screen we saw earlier. I think that's quite unintuitive because the rogue doesn't have a shield. And I'm not just being pedantic about unliteral. It's just you've got character classes and one of them is a warrior, and warriors are associated with tanking and using shields, and rogues are never associated with tanking and using shields. They're associated with getting their armor class from their dexterity or something like that. Going that way. Okay. I haven't quite worked out what the relative value of these things is yet, but maybe that doesn't matter. Maybe we just need to swipety swipe as much as possible and just get whatever we can. Okay, rubies are the most... I'm assuming that this means rubies are the most valuable, because it's at the top. Red and blue. Next time we get one of those, we need to go for the red and blue. Hello, shop wizard. Would you like to sell me your wares? I want the sickle. And some health, please. And now I've spent all my money. And it's time to go and rest. Boss time. Uh-oh. Some sort of biblically accurate seraphim type thing. Gone invisible. Good start. So if you don't internalize what the symbols mean and you do just match colors without thinking about the sort of puzzle questy side of the game, you could end up in a situation where you're fighting a box and all you're doing is barrel rolling the entire time, just being like, yeah, I got some wood. But also smashing anything causes cascades, so you're going to get something you need eventually. Great fanfare sound effect choice. There's a cat shouting at me. It's not even my cat. The neighbour's cat just comes in the house and shouts at me. Oh, we're on floor 2. Okay. Interesting. So we get when we get to the rest point at the end of the floor, we get the option to kind of stick and like leave with half the loot or something. But if we keep going, we keep going. So the blue ring is the one that makes you invisible. And there is another ring. Oh. They just killed me in one. Okay. So the... Oh, there's a little guy. He's going along there. He's going... There he is. They're walking along. Let's go into the castle. So there's no way to get the oh, let's put the CRT filter on. That looks much nicer. Does look better with the CRT on, I think. Yeah, the blue ring is an invisibility ring. There's also a rage ring, which I don't think we get. I think that's like a barbarian class feature or something. Not sure what the gems of treasure do yet, but maybe we just don't have the building that uses them yet. We've got barbarian. Yeah, see, he's got the piece, the shield, the barbarian rage piece. So the rogue has the blue ring that goes invisible, well, the gold ring with the blue background. And the barbarian has a rage ring. I wouldn't say that's a very obvious symbol of rage. You know, it needs to look angry. It needs to have like a fiery stone in it or whatever. Let's do one run as this guy, and then we'll move on to the next game soon. I'm quite enjoying this. I find all of the gameplay of this works quite well for me. It's easy to understand. It seems like it has a reasonable amount of depth in terms of content, even if the core gameplay is something quite simple. I think all the individual art assets in this game look okay. I think some things are just blown up too much. And it's about... It's not even that they don't match. Like, I'm not a purist about mixels. I just think sometimes the scaling of them is so far apart from each other that it starts to feel really jarring, and you lose the cuteness of a character. If this character is rendered at the size of a Broforce character, they kind of look cute and funny. But when they're blown up this big, you start to just see like it's like a South Park character that someone went to town with like serrated scissors, you know. Okay, I'm going to start on the mini boss because we can. It's another ghost. I like the fact that playing as a different character gets us a different set of pieces and colours as well. It makes it feel varied. And I know these have varied effects as well, but you want it to like look varied in the relevant way at the same time. When we first started, I was a little bit wary of the fact that it was in real time rather than being turn-based, but I haven't found that a problem so far. Right. One of them. Some kind of ghoul. Hello, I'm from the Ghoul Removal Service. I've been sent to hit you with an axe until you die. Sorry for any inconvenience this may cause. In future, you may want to consider not being a ghoul, as to avoid further endangerment, damage, or loss of limb and life and limb. What Discord invite link? There was a Discord invite link on one of the previous streams for my game. This stream shouldn't have a Discord invite link on at all, so I don't know what that is. Have you tried not being a ghoul? Uh-oh. Red stuff. Red things and blue things. That's the good stuff. That's what we need. Ah. We've got some red stuff, we've got some blue stuff. Yeah, sorry if it's a... I thought I manually changed the text on the stream to just be the games that were here. There shouldn't be a Discord link in the stream description for this stream at all because it's not relevant to this stream. Okay. I'll have a look at that in a moment because that shouldn't be on this stream. Only put that on the streams when they're about Dirt World. As you're trying to open the chest, you triggered a hidden mechanism which drove sharp spikes into your hand. Your hand got hurt really badly and you lost 15 HP. It's okay, I'm a barbarian. We deal with stuff like that every day. Excuse me, I'm from the Rat Removal Service. I'm here to remove you. If you do not comply with my removal order, I will be forced to bash you with my mace. If you come willingly, you will be rewarded with cheeses and cheese-related novelty items, such as this little hat. No, I don't know why there's a Discord link in the description. There shouldn't be. I did check it before the stream went live. It's probably Streamlabs being weird. Because I set the description up on YouTube where I schedule things. And then before we go live on Streamlabs, I have to copy that over to the Twitch version. And there shouldn't be anything about the Dirt World playtest because that's my game and we're not doing anything about my game today. Yeah, so in terms of actionable feedback on this, I would make these guys much smaller. Like someone said in the chat, put the health bars up the side, up vertical here, so you can see them quicker in relation to the gameplay. The chest spinning, this art is a bit lackluster for what it is. You know, this is an important part of the game. And also, when we're in continue mode, take the key away and take the instruction away. Because you're saying use key to spin chest, and I have no spins left. So which is it? You know? So I feel like, generally speaking, the attention to detail in this game has gone in the right place. In the sense that it's quite a compelling game. I want to carry on playing it. The game feel of doing the core activity of playing the match 3 is decent. And now you just sort of need to go through and do a pass on a bunch of the art stuff, a bunch of the UI approach, just to make it a little bit more polished. I think people will play this in its current state, but you know, there's always that question of, like, if you spent a little bit more time on the thing, how much of an improvement would that make? I think it's always worth making something the best you can possibly make it, because it's going to, like, flow forward into your future projects and stuff like that. So, but yeah, this is, it kind of does exactly what I would expect it to do based on the description and, you know, looking at what the game is at first glance, and that's generally a good thing, you know. There are a few games where you want to really get a big surprise about what the game is. Only certain types of games where that's preferable or enjoyable, and it tends to be very sort of story and mood driven games that do that. This is just delivering on what I expect it to be. I do think I should be able to make 2x2 blocks match as well, though. Okay, we're going to just wrap that up. I'll just go and check what's going on with the stream description very quickly. And blocks. Yeah, it's done. Okay. That's. It's not even got the description that I copied over to Twitch isn't even on the YouTube set anymore, which is like, how does that happen? I copied over to Twitch isn't even on the YouTube set anymore, which is like, how does that happen? I copied over to Twitch isn't even on the YouTube set anymore, which is like, how does that happen? There's so many layers of streaming inside streaming going on now. There we go. That's the Twitch. That's the Twitch playing away. It's not on Twitch either. Okay. Let me just put the links in the description, because I don't like having something up that doesn't have links to the games. So that was Gemmiferous, and what we are looking at next is Huedini. So let me just get this ready. I don't know much about Huedini. I'm not going to read the description. We're just going to go in. We're going to go in blind. But my understanding from just briefly seeing the screenshots is it does more than one thing with color matching stuff. So we got a pun. We've got pun in the name. I love a good pun. Does make me wonder why the slime isn't different colors though. If it's making a pun about hue and colors. For time uncounted, the chromatic gems kept the color balance in harmony. This is great. This is giving, this is like a cover for a Nicolas Cage art house film. Like Mandy or The Color of Space. Color Out of Space. Then came a color not meant to be seen, and with it, corruption. I love it when there's a forbidden color. The gems were seized, the color balance fractured. Huedini, you are the protector of color. Retrieve the gems, or all is lost. It's really pretty art, isn't it? It's incredibly evocative. You know, I think sometimes developers can go into like, oh, it's a world where the color's missing, or it's a world where everyone's a shape, and it can feel like a cop-out. Whereas here, I mean, look at the art style. It's not been done just to kind of cheap out on a thing. So we're doing color as a theme, color matching as a theme, and it's got this really lovely kind of dark fantasy psychedelia pixel art thing going on. That's me. That's me. Me for real. I can change my color with these buttons. Ah, okay, so the 3 buttons on my gamepad relate to the top, right, and left colors here. I didn't see what spelling they'd used. I think I would generally opt for the American spelling unless my game is set in Britain or set in a medieval place where people speak Britishese. That would be, yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, maybe it's just, this is in match my color and pick me up. Don't mind if I do. Switch to blue. Switch to green. Now, you are using green and red together, which is going to be the biggest accessibility problem this game will have. But, I mean, you have matched them to a direction, so there's at least that bit of information. But I can't, if I'm colorblind, then I can't tell whether the gem is blue or green at this stage. And then it might be worth having a shape for redundance. Try to pass through lasers safely, you must match their color. Yeah, so we can't do that with red-green color blindness at all. And that's okay. Like, I think generally speaking, you want to be colorblind friendly in most games, but if your game is fundamentally about color, you know, it may not be a thing you can help. Just like someone that cannot deal with a game being very fast will not be able to play an action game, right? It's in the same sort of category as thing as that. But the kind of strategy that a lot of matching games do to get around that is to have a shape as well as a color. But the laser matching and the floors and stuff, you're not going to be able to do that in this game. So looks beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Right, we can. So we basically got rewards that you can only collect if you are the right color, and we've also got enemies that you can. Ooh. Enemies that you can kind of absorb or defend against if you're the right color. Robin said, according to the game's fiction, colorblind folks would be servants of evil. Yes. It is 1/10 of... Apparently it's 1/10 of men and less common in women. And there is like a Evo biology explanation for that I think is probably not true, but is quite compelling anyway. Apparently people that are red-green colorblind are better at seeing camouflaged animals, and I don't know how true that is. Can be, go on Google Scholar later on, go and look up whether there is a sort of like biological neurodivergence reason for colorblindness, but apparently there are some benefits to having a colorblind person in your tribe. But being able to play this game is not one of them. Summon a poisonous frog. Rotate around you, blocking all bullets. Fireball. I want a froggy. Where do I put it? It's got to be on the green. It just goes in a slot. It's not assigned to like anything in particular. They are pretty cool dark tendrils, yeah. Your toad requires a green... A green absorb. Oh my goodness. Okay, we're doing bullet heaven stuff where it's triggered by the pickups. That's a big old sound effect. So when I when I trigger a green, I'll get my toad ability. Toads and tentacles. We're just going to go for all the creepy crawlies. Plague Drinker. That's me. That's my name, don't wear it out. Nice short arenas. Which I think is quite good because I think this could be quite tiring to do these for a very long period of time. No, I'm not talking very much, but that's because I need to concentrate, but I'm very impressed with this so far. And I mean, it looks beautiful, but I think even if it didn't, I would be quite impressed by how all of the parts of this game hang together. What we're seeing so far. Poison vial. We're being the kind of poison and animals guy. That's what we're going for here. Yeah, so I mean the art is beautiful in its own right, but the gameplay is great as well. It's like I'm seeing a set of mechanics that all feel like they come from different places, but the way that they're put together here, it makes total sense. You know, we're doing like Vampire Survivors, survive for a bit, and then get an upgrade. But the upgrades all tie back into the color swap mechanic, and each arena is like a mini kind of Binding of Isaac type room. It's really, really cool. Really good. It's also a good example of like, you know, people try and make Hades type games when they can't necessarily do all the animation and stuff required to do satisfying combat. Look what's happening here. There's very little direct interaction between my character and the enemies. And it allows it to feel a lot more polished than it might do if it was about, like, dodge rolling and hitting stuff. It's all about the projectiles, you know? So in terms of the way that the art direction and the gameplay interact, it's sort of halfway between something more abstract like Vampire Survivors and something like Hades where it looks more like animated characters moving around. The magnet attracts all bullets matching your current color. That feels like it could be dangerous if you're swapping and not looking for it, so let's go with the lightning. The music choice is very strange, but it does fit that kind of psychedelic art direction. I feel like this person has definitely been watching the last 10 years of Nicolas Cage films. Yeah, I'm manually switching color. So I've got three buttons that switch between the three colors and my directional movement, and that's it. And that's a really good design lesson as well. You know, what can you do with the least amount of actual controls for the player to use and the most amount of contextual information in the game that says, now go into this mode, now go into this mode, now go into this mode. If you can create a lot of the gameplay out of like reading the context on the screen and then just doing one action to respond to it, you're going to have like a really, really rich game without having to program as much and make as much stuff. I mean, you still have to make all the stuff to respond to kind of create that, but okay. Frickin' laser. Time for frickin' lasers this time. One second. Sorry, I'll be back in a moment. Hello? Sorry about that. I have to take any call that comes in just in case it's to do with our house move. It wasn't. Now I've lost my frickin' laser. Okay. We're going to be the fire guy this time. The guy who's really into fire. Boots of Flame? That sounds like something a fire guy would like. Let's do it. Meteor? Ugh. The death is a little bit anticlimactic. Feels like it needs a little bit more. Picking up a gem destroys nearby bullets. Okay, let's go with that. Gem mastery. Picking up a gem grants 1 mana of every colour. Don't mind if I do. Nice. This game is called Huedini. So like Houdini, but spelled H-U-E, like the hue as in colour. It's neat. You saw it in Melbourne. Is it an Aussie dev? Do we know? Let's try the magnet. I feel like the magnet is a death trap, but we'll see. The way you feel your brain gradually map onto the directions of the colour on your thumb is very interesting. A watermelon? Is it a watermelon because it's green and red? Is that the deal with the food items? So if anyone's unsure what's happening, basically you're immune to whatever colour that you currently are. And so you have to just keep looking for what's around you and switching to that thing. And sometimes it's to pick up the gems that give you the mana of that colour that then trigger your abilities. And sometimes it's to just, like, absorb an enemy so that they can't... Oh, here we go. This is what I saw in the screenshots that was initially interesting. Sort of turning into a zoomer level now. This is really scratching my brain in a very peculiar way. So, doing a bullet hell where you constantly have to sort of context switch and understand that, okay, now it's okay to fly into this one, and now I need to avoid this one, and it's like, it's so strange. It's great, really good. It's very chewy, a chewy mental problem. And even though it's very hectic, it feels very varied in the sort of moment-to-moment feel of it, because you have a... The yellow was the character that was attacking for me, I think. So that's why I wasn't really avoiding it. Yeah, just... It's not... It's very intense, as it looks, but it's also giving me a breather every so often, because I'll clear a little area, and then it's not so bad for a few seconds, and I get to stop and think. which is a problem I often have with bullet heaven games, is just the amount of endurance you need to be that overwhelmed for the periods of time the game requires is just too much in a lot of these games. But because you kind of clear an area of one colour, you get these, you do get some respite in this, which is interesting. It's cool. It's a really cool game. Let's do one more run, and then we'll check out the third game of the day. Really impressed with this one. Last one was pretty good. Was kind of what I expected, you know, puzzle quest with a bit of a speed element. This is totally out of the blue strangeness. Just works very well. You know, lots of elements that have come from different sorts of games put together in a very thoughtful way. Very good sense of pacing. And even if you take away all of the really, really gorgeous visuals that this game has, it would be fundamentally a very mechanically solid game as well. Nice. Yeah, I don't... So someone said it's hard when you're watching it to see which colour is equipped. So it's the... If you would look at the head of the character rather than the orbs, that's the best guide. It feels very fair. There's never any situation where there's a danger that I can't see coming. I think it's doing a good job of not spawning enemies directly underneath me as well. Everything is telegraphed very well. And if you're working on an action game at the moment and you want to know how to make your action game feel fair, which is something that players will care about in a skill-based game, lots of good lessons here. Everything that the characters do, if it's more complicated than just bounce around, is telegraphed very, very well. And also, it seems like we don't get any kind of out-of-the-blue traps, like stuff spawning under our feet or anything. Dead. That's great. Death feels a bit anticlimactic. I feel like the music direction is really cool, but you're going to need some variety there. You know, changing it over time. Changing it when we get to this screen. All of that kind of stuff. Really, really great. Great core gameplay. Really, really visually interesting game. And we saw... Let's just have a quick nose on here. We saw this sort of boss encounter design where you've got the spinny thing. We've got a laser Cthulhu. Yeah, it just looks like there's lots of really interesting different permutations of the same puzzle. You know, we got this one where we've got a rock band thing. We've got a Guitar Hero thing. Which looks like it's just running down. It's like doing colour matching while you do one of those sort of running Crash Bandicoot bosses. Yeah, the title's fun. So I would go green, red, blue, green, red, blue, green, or something like that. Or green, red, blue. Yeah, green. Maybe they tried that though. That's the funny thing with these things. It's like, okay, this looks like the type of design that someone has done multiple iterations on and put a lot of work into. So maybe they tried a rainbow version and they just went, nah, in the end. Very, very cool. Yeah. I'm going to put it on my wish list as well. Doesn't happen very often. I don't know how that works. It's because I'm on the demo page. Okay. Last one. So let's read about this one. Weather has arrived. One planet, one button, 4 directions. An escalating puzzle game inspired by games like Weetrix, Puyo Puyo, and Tetris, where the pieces fall all 4 directions. Match sun, water, and earth to feed your planet and explore the galaxy. First place in that game jam. Controls. Spacebar, fire pieces. Oh, it's 1 button. Excellent. I always love a game with a crazy constraint like a 1 button game or whatever. Colorblind people won't be able to play that last game at all. And again, I think in a game where that is the main skill you're operating, it's can't really do much about it. I mean, you could do some stuff to change the colors and have a settings menu where someone can swap them around, I guess. But even then, we had things like the lasers where the color of the laser is not really exactly the same hue as the rest of the color in the world. Oh, look how cute this is. Okay, I'm clicking on play. Let's say how to play first. This is incredibly... I mean, maybe this was done after the game jam, but this feels incredibly well realized for a game jam. Your health and current score is tracked here. We're trying to not let pieces fly off the grid. Okay. The amount of each color you scored this game. That's water, sunlight, and earth. Your current combo. Match pieces quickly to keep the rainbow up and increase your score multiplier. Okay. Active pieces fly back and forth on their side. Press spacebar to fire them into the grid. Ah, intriguing. It's like we're kind of catching things in the orbit of the planet by dropping them at a certain time. So we're using the spacebar to trigger things at particular points. Kind of like one of those fairground toy picker-upper machines that goes... And you have like minimal control over it. But it kind of amounts to having all of these blocks on this thing. And you don't want them to extend out and past the thing. That's really neat. That's already kind of quite an interesting idea to me. And that was a wonderful transition as well. This is lovely. Such a good idea. Ah, that was a... I made a boo-boo. That's so cute. The visual design of the blocks is really, really lovely. Ah. I love the little facial and the little planet faces as well. We're getting some music change. That's nice. I do often with these are kind of like single screen games. I do think about like how do you make it change over time sufficiently enough to make it feel like a game that people would play a lot of, you know? And maybe that doesn't always need to be the goal, but it's always something to think about. It's a very friendly planet. It's the friendliest planet I've seen all day. It's really interesting. It kind of keeps its difficulty, even though, like, you know, color matching games, the classic thing is, or tile matching games, classic thing is, you can make the game more difficult by just having more variety of the thing, because then it's harder to find things to match it with. This is kind of what Bust a Move did, you know, Puzzle Bobble, that was inexplicably localized as Bust a Move. That is like super sensitive to like, oh, if you've got a level with 3 colors on versus a level with 5 colors, the difference in how it feels in terms of difficulty is absolutely massive. But this feels still pretty difficult, even with just the 3 colors and it never kind of adding more on. And that kind of tells me that if you did want to expand this game and make a bigger version, then you could have like, you could have these 3 base things as the thing on every level. And then if you wanted to add some surprise and variety, you could have like, have different levels where it has another thing. I don't know what the other thing would be. You know, like a little pink alien or something different coming to the planet. I don't know. But I could already see that if you did that, it would make it considerably more difficult, because this is already quite hard. I know I'm saying that like having not lost, but the more the board gets filled up, the harder it is to spot the opportunities. So you're dealing with the sort of action game aspect of trying to drop the thing in the right place. You're also trying to spot where the right place is as well. And the right place is very obvious at the start. It's kind of like the opposite of... In a game of like pool or snooker, like, the less stuff there is on the table, the easier it is to see the thing you should do. It's kind of that is happening here. It's like, there's more stuff on the table, and now I'm... it's just harder to see the right place I should put anything in. Rainbow. Uh-oh. We're getting another colour. It seems to just be a thing that destroys... So it's a meteor. Angry little meteor guy. Put that there. So it destroys what it lands on. So it looks angry, but it's actually helpful. Gets rid of a piece for you if you position it right. Yeah, Maui, this is absolutely lovely. Don't know what the rainbow actually does, but I don't care. I got rainbow. The really great example of how you can theme something that could be relatively abstract to feel like it's not telling a story, but has a larger thing going on, you know? It's the little resources that the planet needs. Does have a very Game Boy type feel. Losing hearts every time I do that. Forgot that that's how you lose hearts. This is delightful. I don't really have like much actionable feedback on this. I think it does such a good job of what it's doing. Really, really charming. Quite tiring, I would say. I think having any sort of way to break it up or give people some sort of break if you want them to play it longer than I just did in that first round. Very, very tiring. I think it doesn't help to be playing it in this context on a big PC screen sat right in front of it. But you've made the correct choice of not making the gameplay go all the way out to the edge as well. The fact that the gameplay is sort of in the middle and just that middle third of the screen is good as well. I would find this really, really visually difficult to deal with if it was trying to take up the whole screen with the gameplay. Kind of like we were talking about with the first game, just like being conscious of what is in the middle and what needs to be in the middle, because people need to move their eyes around to see things depending on where you position it on the screen, and then that's going to make their game more or less easy. And you want the difficulty in your game to be in the right place, which is in the actual challenge you're asking the player to do, rather than like silly stuff like, do I need to scroll halfway across the screen to do a regular thing with the mouse, or, you know, where are my eyes generally resting as I play the game, that kind of stuff. It's all UX stuff. you know what, if you do a mobile version of this or any kind of commercial release, one of the things I would love to see you do that I think would be a very small amount of work that would go quite a long way. Make the faces on the different objects like unlockable strings of sprites. So you can put like a different facial expression on each of them, and you can say, oh, this is my son is angry. My earth is sleepy. I'm thinking of like my daughter is 10 and she collects things like squishmallows and all sorts of like little cute things. And I'm just thinking of like the whole aesthetic of this game, and I think if she was playing this and there was some way that you could grind to unlock different little faces to put on these guys, that would be like the killer feature to give this game like a long tail to keep people playing it. Nothing complex, just like different little faces. If you look at like the faces that you get that are like on Roblox, where you've got one that is kind of like a Barbie or Bratz face, and then one that's more like a pixel art face and stuff, I think people would have a lot of fun with that. Just from, yeah, just like really silly, goofy feature, but relatively simple. I think indie games generally, I think this is a designer brain thing, right? Because if you're the sort of person that makes an indie game and gets to the end of finishing it, you will have a particular type of brain, and it's most likely to think that everyone wants gameplay functionality as unlocks, right? And most of the time we do. It's cool to unlock new features, new abilities, but I do think sometimes we underplay how powerful like just getting a new backpack in Fortnite is, or something like that. And the one that we've been discussing a lot recently, because it came up with Cosmic Eye a few weeks ago, which used to be called Planet Popper, but that's like a game with a 2-color color palette. Palette unlocks, right? Like they did in Downwell. It's just such a nice way of giving someone something to play for and unlock that doesn't require a great amount of implementation. Like imagine if you came back to this screen and these just randomly had all of the different faces you'd unlocked so far on them as well. And then occasionally a meteor would go by. And you know, sometimes you get the normal angry meteor face, and sometimes the meteor is going. Or something like that. I'm going to give it one more go, but then I'm going to wrap it up after this one, I think, because it's quite tiring. It's quite a hardcore game, One Pot Planet. So it's hard work being a planet. I think that's what the game is saying to me. That's the argument the game is making as a piece of art, is that it's actually quite hard work being a planet. We should respect the planet not just because it's where we live, but because it works pretty damn hard to carefully pull in things gravitationally so that it gets a rainbow multiplier score or whatever. I wasn't aware of any of this. You know, I don't have like a biology background or a geology background. I just don't know much about planets, and I didn't realize that this is the kind of thing they go through. I have a newfound respect for the planet now. I used to just go out in the garden and dig a hole because I felt a great sense of grievance against the planet and I wanted to destroy it. But now I'm gonna do the opposite. I'm gonna go out the garden, I'm gonna fill in that hole. I'm gonna say sorry to the world. I didn't realize you had it so hard. There's a bit of a theme today of kind of what I was saying with Huedini is happening here as well, where you've got like a very simple player interaction, but quite a rich context that they're doing it in. You know, like how much of your game happens in the head and the eyes rather than in the hands. It's okay to make a complex game with loads of buttons and loads of things the character can do and all of that kind of stuff, but I think if you don't nail that baseline thing of what is happening in the player's head and the player's eyes, then often you don't end up with something very compelling. And this is incredibly compelling, even though I'm just pressing one button and timing it. And it's because, like, I wouldn't be interested in a timing game where I just press one button and I have to press it at exactly the right time, because I have to judge the board state and then use that to decide what the right time is. There's actually quite a complicated series of things going on to make this game work. But as developers, we often fall in the trap of thinking, oh, I added a new feature. I added a thing that when we press this new button, this new thing happens. And that's often not... I mean, it can be a place where the richness in your game comes from, but it's not the only way of doing it. Sometimes it's just about a simple interaction where the state of the game that you're looking at can really change how you want to do it or where you want to do it, that kind of thing, you know? My Moloch. So if you did have a gravity mode, the only problem would be there's like, if you think of the grid around the planet, is if you were to pull the pieces into the planet, there's a vertical and horizontal bar where it's very clear where they should go. But then there's all the stuff in the diagonals where you, I guess you could pull it diagonally if there's a right path, but that could get very confusing. Yeah, it does feel like maybe it's worth experimenting with that as a feature, because it's thematically intuitive because the planet is pulling stuff in. But it would change the gameplay quite considerably. And that was one of the problems I was having with Cosmic Kai last time I playtested it. Developers put in this really cool effect where you pop pieces and then a black hole appears and pulls everything together. I never felt like I could quite internalize how that rule worked. And I wasn't worried about it because it felt like, oh, after I've played this game for 2 or 3 hours, maybe I'll internalize that rule. It's just like a advanced gameplay feature. But it could pretty, you know, dramatically change how that thing feels to play. See if I'm on the top of the leaderboard. There I am. Unranked. Which is basically the one above one. I know they've laid this leaderboard out in quite an unclear way. Because they've put me at the bottom. And actually I should be up here. But it's just, you know, sometimes when you make a game jam, you don't have much time. And that means that my score ends up going at the bottom of the leaderboard when it should go at the top. And that's just the nature of game jams and making games quickly. Sometimes you get things wrong. Sometimes the leaderboard is wrong. Anyway, thank you all for joining today. What have I got next week? This time next week, put it in your diaries. I have titled next week's stream Unusual Roguelikes. I don't know how unusual they're really going to be, but we'll see. Before then, what have we got going on? What have we got going on before then? Let's see. We've got the Discord members stream next Wednesday. And that is basically the same thing, but it's just folks who support this channel and are part of the Patreon and submit their games via Discord. If you're already part of our Discord, Playtesting and QA channel, you can submit games there. So if you're not and you want to just get in the queue for Indies Under the Knife, you can go to indiegameclinic.com. You can go down here where it says please submit your game here. You can fill out the form and you can say my game is not finished yet, because it's not supposed to be finished yet. I don't play finished games on this stream. It needs to be a work in progress where you're still working on it in some way. It needs to not have any AI in it. I don't explicitly say that, but I do ask if it has AI in it, and I tend to not play games if they have AI stuff in them, unless the game looks really, really interesting, which those things often don't go together. I do not currently cover mobiles games. I need to update this because it's got spelling errors in it. But yeah, if you want to jump the queue, you can go to patreon.com/indiegameclinic. You can join the Patreon and you can join the Discord. And then I do a thing every 2 weeks where I play Discord members' games and give them feedback. And that one's nice because it means I get to see the games more than once as well. And we see them as they develop. So other reasons you might want to join the Patreon is because you're nice and you want to help us out and you want there to be a feedback channel for game developers which is focused on sort of game design and creative direction and not just business and marketing like a lot of the game dev content around at the moment is. But there's also stuff on here that folks get through Patreon, like notes from the Game Developers Library podcast, scripts for videos before I even record the videos, versions of my videos that you can watch without needing to use an ad blocker and you don't get any ads, sometimes the slides that go along with them if I do slide-based talks, all of that stuff. You can sign up for free and get the monthly newsletter, and that will just be what's going on the channel that month, and occasionally something badgering you to give me money, because that's how these things work. The next essay I'm posting on here, so my workflow at the moment is like I make video essays about game design, but usually a few weeks before a video goes up, the script goes on Patreon so people can see the general gist of it and get that ahead of time. So the next one is going to be about creative constraints and how indie games often do things like, make a game with no characters in, make a game with no levels, how, all the different reasons why you would do that and the approaches that different games have taken. So something like that will be going up in the next week or so, and then middle of December we're going to have Disruption for a few days while I move house, which is exciting and stressful, and probably means I'll have not functioning internet for a while, because basically Britain still has Stone Age internet in most places from ye olde times when the internet used to be in black and white. And so when you move, you never know if you're going to somewhere with modern internet or the old-fashioned black and white internet. So I might be in black and white on the next stream. Let's see what's... I love the fact that... I love the fact that Bite Me is always in the chat badgering people to do Patreon instead of the YouTube membership. Yeah, I might shut the YouTube memberships down eventually, because they just make life more difficult because they don't work properly. And I can do all of this extra stuff on Patreon. Whereas on YouTube, the thing I don't like about... So one of the reasons I don't like or promote the YouTube channel memberships very much when I have them is that if I want to make a members only video on YouTube as like a little treat, then it gets used to advertise the memberships to everyone else, even if I don't want it to be. And I really hate that, because the whole point of the channel is like I do this thing for quote unquote free, to sort of help people and like, build a community and stuff like that. And then people financially support that on Patreon in order to keep that thing free and open so that the YouTube channel can be free and open, right? In the past, I've had a few videos on the YouTube channel where I thought, oh, I don't like that video anymore, or maybe that's too personal, or it's just helpful but in a very specific way, and I don't think it's a great thing to have on the homepage. So instead of deleting the video, I set it to members only, and I thought, okay, the people who are members on YouTube, they can just have that as a little bonus. I don't think it's great, but if other people value it, then fine. But then you start getting people join the membership because it's used to advertise. It's all over the channel going, sign up to a membership, get these members only videos, and there's no middle ground. Whereas Patreon, it's a lot more like guarded in terms of, you can say, if you have this membership you get this, if you have this membership you get this, and it's like you can just have the free newsletter on there, and it's not constantly pushing you to unlock other things unless I specifically decide to do a sale or something like that. So I really, you know, yeah, we get less of a cut, like my channel and other channels very similar to it that operate across multiple platforms and have a Patreon and have this and that and the other. We get much of a less of a cut from Google, from YouTube memberships than we do from Patreon subscriptions. And Patreon is just a lot easier to give you extra stuff without ruining the experience for everyone on the YouTube channel as well. So that's why I have that preference. There's a couple of reasons. And in the new year, at some point, I will probably wind down the YouTube memberships at some point, because they are... they kind of make the YouTube look very clearly two-tiered, and I don't want that. I want to do a public resource for people that want to hang out and talk about game design and look at each other's games, that is open to everyone, and then have a separate thing for that rewards people who want to pay for and support that thing, rather than making it like a two-tiered thing from the outset. So let's just see what people are saying in the chat. Bite me disabled their YouTube YT memberships. Yeah, I will do it soon. People will miss their emojis, but it's a shame you can't make the emojis free without... Hi, David the Dave. I'm just trying to scroll back in the chat a bit. Slop simulator where you create AI-generated slop, burn trees, and kill kittens. Honestly, I have this theory that the best like business management games always have you sort of deliberately playing as a bit of a bastard, because it just fits the theme better. Like, you can't have a game that's just about endlessly accumulating wealth and also have it about being a good person. So you may as well just make the player a bad person, right? This is what Bullfrog Games already nailed this in the 90s when they made like Theme Hospital and Dungeon Keeper. It was like, a boss is usually a bad position that someone has to do bad things in, so let's just make the player a bad guy in the first place. So Slop Simulator could be quite fun. I don't know. I had that... someone sent in this AAA game studio simulator a few months ago, and it was just... it didn't live up to what it was trying to do, I don't think. Hi, Guilame. We're just about to wrap up for the day today. We've been through three games with some similar themes. I mean, Schedule 1 is just a weed game, so... The way that you could... What you could do, Robobin, is... Is Schedule 1 on Steam Workshop? Can you modify it? If Dirt World makes $1 million, what's the guilty pleasure purchase you'll get yourself? Hair implants and new teeth. That's two guilty pleasure things, but both of them. Or teeth as hair implants, just to be extravagant, just like a full head of teeth. Design a design challenge for you, Robobin. I think. Schedule 1 doesn't have a it doesn't have a workshop, does it? If they ever open modding for Schedule 1, what you should do is make a mod for it where before you give people weed, you can screen them for schizophrenia. And then you can play the game and you can know which characters are most at risk from the drug. And you can do other health related things as well. You could like you could make sure that they you could only just sell it as vapes and make sure that they don't have any kind of carcinogenic intake methods and stuff like that. But yeah, some sort of like mental health screening mod for this so that you can know who it's okay to sell drugs to. And then you'll be able to tell whether Trent Sherman should really get 7 grams of OG Kush or not. I really like this game. I thought I went into this. I want to play it again soon. I went into this thinking it was going to be slop, but there's something about it's so chilled out. Like the ambient music, the lighting, all of the it just feels a lot more. It feels a lot less South Park than it looks like it's going to be. You know, it looks like it's going to just be full-blown South Park. And it's... I mean, this guy's face would lead you to believe this was going to be a South Park game. But it's actually incredibly chilled out. And it's silly, but it's not... It's like relaxing to play. It feels like the developer was very thoughtful about all of those things. Like how the lighting and the music and everything create a mood. STFNGLN. Sorry to throw in a huge question. That's alright. I mean, I try and run these streams for 2 hours and we're not up to 2 hours yet anyway, so. Stefan said, you know how Zukowski always talks about crafty systems games, and you personally don't really think in terms of genre. What do you think he means? Depth. Let's draw a whiteboard, because I feel like this is going to be the sort of thing where I'm going to need to doodle at some point if we talk about this. But it's a good conversation to end the stream on, so let's do it. What does Chris mean by crafty buildy games? Can I make a new whiteboard? So I'm just trying to use Canva on my other screen for a moment so that you don't accidentally see all of my Bite Me Games fan art that I've been working on. So let's think of what is crafty buildy. Why is it good? What's it got going for it? So what's a genre that is generally not recommended to make? Like a action character driven action game, right? So what do each of these things have going for them or not going for them? Like, why is a crafty buildy game like a more recommended genre? Right? Yeah, let's put platformer. I mean, I think they all fall into the same issue. Yeah. So I think, Robobin, what you just said is great. They've got a good return on investment in terms of time to build versus amount of playtime, right? Platformer, very, very resource intensive to make well, right? I think so. Driven by a clear player fantasy. This is important, I think. If you get a game where you can build stuff, there's a clear player fantasy of building a beautiful thing, right? Or building a functional thing or whatever it is. And that fantasy of like what I want to do as a player doesn't require me to care about the narrative layer of the game, right? And this is important because it's not because players don't like narrative, but players who like narrative like it done well. And there's a weird thing to do with survivorship bias in game dev where the majority of people who have the technical skills to complete making a game probably are lacking certain other skills. And those might be requires skills that are not related to programming or simply putting our assets in an engine, right? Character-driven action game or a platformer, Devil May Cry, whatever it is, whatever we've decided a Souls-like is this week, requires you to actually be a technical artist at the implementation level. It's not just good enough to like get a bunch of Mixamo animations and some pretty decent 3D characters and go, right, we've got the assets. It's also how they feel to interact within the game and like where the hit frames are and all of that stuff. Very, very challenging. Even in like the platformer I'm working on at the moment, I have like 4-frame walk cycles and stuff like that, and doing all the animation management and making it feel okay and characterful and stuff like that is really a lot of work. So a lot of this comes down to, are you as a developer doing something that you're good at? So this kind of game, really, I mean, if we go back to Huedini that we looked at earlier, which is a somewhat character-driven action game, right, with a good animation, lots of character. Look at this guy. This is a game that has like almost like a Shovel Knight aspiration of like we want this guy to be a little mascot who we put on a t-shirt type thing, right? This is not the type of game you make if you are a programmer who has no intention of becoming an artist. This is the type of game where the art is leading the project, and it's still a decent, mechanically decent game. Everything feels good. All of the interactions are very cool. There's lots of variety in how all this stuff moves. But this is an art-led project. And, you know, people have various different feelings about pixel art, but there are all sorts of different types of pixel art. And this is very high-quality 90s console-style pixel art. Right? This is an art-driven project. And that means that they can get away with, you know, making something very character driven. And even then, the character isn't a character. They're just like a thing that you control, like a Mario or a Rayman or something. But even then, it's basically a case of, you know, you probably shouldn't go down this route at all unless that is the thing that is leading your project. Because making like a character driven action game where the amount of the kind of bulk of the skills on the team are actually just programming and not making a cool looking guy and making them move around in a good way, right? That's just a recipe for failure. So I think when someone says when someone says these games do well, do these games, and then they say these games don't do well, do these games, I think what they're actually doing is trying to simplify the fact that these are games that are generally attempted by people who do not have the skill set to do them. Whereas if you are a solo developer or you're on a team, you know, like Bite Me, for example, you're a team that doesn't have artists, right? You're predominantly engineers or people that use game engines as your main thing, and you get art assets from somewhere else. So that kind of setup, which is what a lot of people are. If you're a solo developer, a lot of you are people who have either come in from software development or are predominantly learning the game engine and then maybe doing some art on the side. It makes sense to lean into the thing that only uses the skills that you actually have, rather than the thing that doesn't have the skills that you actually have. I feel like I give the same talk on this pretty much every week. Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to approach this not from the perspective of like, what does Chris say? Because I think, I don't think Chris is the only person who does this. Who was it who did the ideas? What was it? The ideas iceberg thing the other day. Where's the ideas iceberg data sheet? Let me find it. So I'm going to put it over here. Right. So your video game idea. Here we go. This was a really good talk. I really like this video. It's O Inc. video from 8 days ago. Really, really good. But there is this data sheet that is from Chris. Here it is. Here it is. It's the how to market a game data sheet. I probably could have just found this online. And this kind of stuff always gets used to say, oh, this type of thing is popular, this is not popular. But it doesn't factor in. There's a bunch of things it doesn't factor in. Let me see if I can find it. It's more link to blog in description. Let's get it and zoom in on it. But I do think so much of this comes down to which genres is it easier to do well as an indie developer, right? So, okay, here's Chris's data. Number of games released is the blue thing, and the median earnings is the red thing, right? So when we've got so sexual content here, loads of games released, don't earn that much relatively, right? So what this tells us is the quality is proportionally low within the total genre, right? And then if we go down here, 2D platformers kind of in a similar position. It's not as exaggerated because the porn games are kind of like dominating on that end of things. But the 2D platformers, loads of games made medium quality very low. And we, as developers, we all know why that is, right? These are the types of games that people generally try to make as their first project, and they are based on like the tutorials that come with the game engine. And that's why we have such a big amount of games that are down this end of the scale, where there are lots of them released and they don't make much, right? The problem is, from my perspective, is that is then used to read the desirability, like the market desirability or the audience preference of these games, right? Lots of these are made and they don't make much money. That must mean that people don't want them, right? I think that is not what is actually going on. I think what is actually going on is these are just predominantly bad games in their genre, right? And the reason I think this is not just me being defensive of platformers because I like platformers. Let's look at an opposite example, right? So if we go down this end of the scale, where we've got the most lucrative genres with the least entries, 4X and roguelike deck builder, right? There are not many of these, but they make a disproportionate amount. Because they're hard to make. It's basically because you don't get to the point where you've even released one of these until you know a lot more hard game dev stuff than if you know this stuff. The other thing here is that an indie 4X game is pretty much practically impossible, right? So I know that I think that what Chris did with this data, which is what he usually does, is take away all of the stuff that wouldn't be classified as an indie, right? So with 4X games, we've got Paradox games, which wouldn't be indies, and then some other tier of 4X games that exist. Think of the feature set that you expect when you play Civilization or Age of Wonders or any of those 4X games. You basically want a big multiplayer game with loads and loads of content variation, right? Like, yeah, this data is from 2019, so Deck Builder would be bigger. But even then, I think this is a genre of game that's just generally harder to finish and release than some of the stuff down here. But 4X, if you take 4X as the example, you basically can't really make a 4X that isn't multiplayer, because the way they generally work is it is a multiplayer strategy game and the single player mode is multiplayer with bots, right? So that is already a massive hurdle. Like, you've got to make a networked multiplayer game, and it's got to, yeah, I think it's since 2019, but it's from 2022, so this is a 3-year gap that goes up to 2022. To make a 4X game, you've got to make a networked multiplayer strategy game. Then you've got to make AI to play it against bots, right? So this is like in the median high earnings. These are very popular. People like them, and there aren't many. The reason there aren't many and why they score higher on earnings is because there are fewer made, and the ones that are made to a higher quality. You know? Now, this is where the discussion we were just having about crafty buildy gets interesting, because city builder and simulation management are here, and they're not that much behind 4X on terms of their median earnings, but they're much higher in terms of how many of them get made. And this block of 3 is interesting to me because I like all of these genres. I like city building, I like doing simulation and management games, and I like 4X. They all appeal to the same thing. They're all some sort of god game where you're just like omnipotently in a space doing stuff and building a thing. So why do we have this massive discrepancy? Well, it's the stuff I just talked about. A 4X is not an accessible genre for a small team to make, right? Like Dawnfolk just came out, and that's a single player strategy game that has some of the qualities of a 4X, and I really, really liked it, but most 4X fans would not call that game a 4X. Whereas a city builder or a simulation and management game is a single player game first and foremost. It also has much looser genre conventions, so it's much easier to just make any game and put it in the simulation and management category. You can make a city builder, and as long as it's about building a city, people will go, yeah, that's a city builder. Whereas a 4X needs to kind of really adhere to quite a tight set of expectations about the strategy and how it works, and like the UX of the game and all of those kind of things. So here we have kind of 2 types of games that you could think of as being crafty buildy games, which are just they're higher in volume because they're easier to make, right? And all of this line is like it's the relative quality of the thing within the genre in relation to how many get made. So it's very low in 2D platformer because people make them as learning projects, right? It's relatively high in the genres where people don't finish their game and put it out unless it's kind of good. And that's really low for 4X because indie teams can't make 4X games. And maybe this roguelike deck builder will be much higher in 2025. But again, it's a type of game where the data architecture to make a deck builder is like considerably more complex than it is to make any sort of game where a little guy jumps around on a screen, right? Not saying that it's not. I'm not saying it's easy to make a good action game. I'm saying it's easy to make an action game that seems kind of okay and put it out there. And I think that's what this data is really saying. It's not saying anything about this genre is popular and underserved, so make it. It's telling you about the production constraints of an indie game studio and which types of games are easier for someone to just rush out and ship rather than something like a 4X that you just basically can't make unless you're Paradox. Can we have 10p streaming for Christmas? I didn't even know we weren't on it, to be honest. I'll have a look on the settings on Streamlabs after this. But output, video bitrate, just having a look. It says yeah, like I don't currently have the technical knowledge in Game Maker, which is the engine I know the most about, to build a deck builder, right? I think people often think turn-based games will be easier, but you have to do... They're not easier as a programming challenge, I don't think. There's a lot of stuff that... I don't know who it was that said that you get a lot of gameplay out of physics, you know? Just having things fall around and everything, which is not something that you have in a turn-based game. I'm just looking at the video settings. My base canvas resolution is 1920 by 1080, so I don't know... Oh, output resolution, 1280 by 7. Yeah, I'll fix that after the stream, Mario. For you. Just for you. Anyway, that's my ramble. I think the crafty buildy is not a genre, right? It's a set of interactions that are relatively easy to get right. And I think that's what a lot of this data points to. It's like, what is easy to get right? And what is a thing that people commonly try to do that they don't do very well, you know? Right, but even then, like, Metroidvania is so high, where is it? Here, yeah. But even then, that starts to make me wonder about the categories, because in the vast majority of cases, a Metroidvania is a 2D platformer, right? So we've got some kind of weird double counting going on here as well with the way that... Aniello Tero, why do I consider that I'm incapable of doing a deck builder roguelike? I mean, are you a programmer? Because I feel like if you are, you're either taking for granted how complex that is for someone that is not really a programmer, because I'm not, or you're not a programmer and you haven't considered all the things that you need to bear in mind to make one of those games work. Because it's not just like a deck of cards where you have an array of data and then it's like which of these cards are in my hand, which are in the deck. You've also got to do all the stuff like upgrading them, buffing them, all of that kind of stuff. And you might say, no, you don't have to do that. Well, you do, because I don't think there's any point in working in a genre unless you can aim for like the top 10% of it. Platformer is anything with a jump button. Yeah. We'll be using the term rage games in 2022. Yeah, I think if you're an indie studio that has Soren Jansson or whatever his surname is, that is going to be a slightly different situation, right? And this is the thing: we're not saying an indie 4X is completely impossible. I'm saying it has a bunch of things stacked against it, which is the need for it to be a multiplayer first game and to have all of these different factions and stuff. Because the way these generally work, you know, it works like this in Civ, it works like this in the fantasy ones. It's like you play it as one of the factions and you master that, and then you move on, you play it as one of the others and stuff like that. Yeah, I heard the first time Power Protocol. I just I didn't want to look it up, because if I look it up and it looks really disappointing and you've just told me to look it up on stream, then it's going to look really bad, isn't it? I mean, it looks very military focused, which to me is not what a 4X game is really like. Looks more like a Risk or something, like a military area control game. I mean, I'm not going to spend a long time on it. I'm just saying this isn't really what I would consider to be a 4X game because it doesn't have the other elements. It's just military control of areas, which is the board game Risk rather than Civilization. The reason for the red line, last question, and then I'm going to log off. The reason, this is the median earning in that category, right? It's not how much money the entire genre makes. It's what are the median earnings. So the most, I need to make sure I get this right because it's the most common number, isn't it? The middle value in the data set. Okay, so imagine this roguelike deck builder here is 3 roguelike deck builders, right? Imagine this amount. It's going to be more. It's going to be hundreds or thousands. But imagine it's only 3. The fact that this is up here at like $32 means that those 3 roguelike deck builders could have made $32, $0, and $1 million. And 32 would be the median value because it's in the middle, right? So this is trying to give you an average of how much money a game in this genre usually makes, which bears no direct relation to how many games in that genre get made, but I think it kind of does, as I've just said, I think it does bear a relationship because the reason it's lower in these is because the vast majority of games made in these categories are just not good. You know? Yeah, so even these smallest ones, it's going to be thousands. You know, this online party game. Oh, no, here it is. Like, number of games released is here, the blue. So this is about 100, this line here. So online party game is probably about 10, right? The roguelike deck builder is about 10, is about 50 or something like that. So it does have the release numbers there. Yeah, it does bear relation. But what I'm trying to say is it doesn't bear the relation that we're often kind of led to think around with this kind of data, which is that you shouldn't make one of the games in these genres because they don't do well, right? You probably shouldn't, but the reason your game won't do well is because you lack the requisite skills to make one of these games well, which is what I was just talking about on the Canva, right? The reason why a game developer is more likely to have success with a crafty buildy game is because you can make a game with no animated characters, no story, no level design requirements, right? All of these things that you don't have to do in your game now. And that means that the general quality of the game can be better. Whereas if you make one of those genres on the right-hand side, like a character-driven game, you have to have good animation, you have to have all of these, you have to have levels, you have to have all of these aspects to your game that are all individual skill sets, which is why large game dev teams have animators and level designers and stuff, and they don't have one person doing everything, right? So most of the stuff that's down the right-hand side of this is stuff where you basically need a broader range of skills to do it well. Or at least this stuff that is like has a very high amount of releases and a low median earning. Yellow of the Tide, how much should streamability be a factor in making a game? I don't know. Make a game you're well equipped to make well. The marketing stuff is important, but it's only important after you've already made a good game. I know that's really annoying to hear. But if you design an entire game about streamability, but it's a terrible game because you're making a game in a genre that you don't really understand or that you don't have the skills to deliver well in, then it's going to do poorly no matter how marketable you make it, you know? I think one of the easy things is, as you're making, I've been thinking about this a lot recently, is so I've been playing around with cameras in my game because the game had this issue of like the camera is always at the same distance, it's always, the character is always the same place in the screen, all of that kind of stuff. And that meant when I was capturing screenshots or footage, it just always kind of looked the same. So I started to play around with that side of things. That's the kind of thing you can think about that benefits the game itself and also gives you a better content pipeline for making marketing materials from the game or making it more visually attractive when people stream it and stuff like that. So I would try and think of stuff where the design decisions you make as you're making your game are going to make it better to stream, for someone to, like, you know, play the game and talk through as they're playing it, or for it to look different on screen and not to always look like the same thing. There are decisions you can make that are going to make the game better for everyone that will also make it better for streaming. So if you care about that, which you probably should on some level, then I would focus on those things, right? Is it a Miyamoto quote? A good idea solves two problems, right? So every time you're thinking about your marketing, think about ways that you can solve two problems at once and do something that makes the game better and then also makes your marketing better at the same time, right? And you could think about this in terms of like how you approach the marketing in the first place. So there's a podcast that is the guys who made Crashlands, and I was listening to that recently, and they were talking about how, as they're developing their game, they put up short form reels and TikToks and stuff, and they use those to build the initial fandom around the game. But they also use that to judge which features the players are excited about. Because if they put up 10 videos and the same feature is the thing that people always get excited about, then it's like, okay, that's the core of the game now. You know? So that's an example of killing two birds with one stone, solving two problems with one solution, you know? So all of these questions about... Yeah, butterscotch, that's the one. Do stuff that you think will make the game look more appealing in your trailers and more appealing to streamers and all of that stuff, but try and do it in a way that adds value for the players at the same time. But I'm gonna log off now because you guys are asking about marketing too much and it's boring. And the vast majority of people who are interested in game marketing need to just focus on making a better game and then talking to people about it and showing it to them. And Bite Me actually put a really good short up about this the other day. If you've shown people your game and no one gives you any feedback, that is feedback. You know, people don't like giving people negative feedback. So generally speaking, if someone gives you neutral feedback, and I've experienced this in every medium I've worked in, on my games, on my music, if people don't give you any feedback and get excited about it, they're basically giving you negative feedback. So show your games to people, post it in Discords, set up a Discord for your game, start to try and get people to softly commit to coming in and joining your community and playtesting your game and stuff like that. If you can't, the game probably doesn't look particularly inspiring, and you don't need to worry about any of this business stuff or any of this marketing stuff until you're at that stage. So that will always be my response to that kind of thing. The marketing is important, but whether you're actually at a stage where you need to be worrying about it yet is going to be something you can learn based on whether you're getting positive feedback about the game in the first place, right? Because otherwise you're going to market with a product that's not really a product, because a product is something that people want. If you haven't tested that part and you don't know if people want it, then you're basically just sort of standing in a marketplace waving something around in the air and going, look at this. Right, I'm looking